Greetings Salesforce architects. My name is Shruti MN. Today we shall traverse the intricate lattice of deterministic LWC frameworks and bulk save trigger, apex trigger orchestration employing the universally available account and contact objects. My name is Shruti MN and I want you to be part of this curriculum where I see the attendees have joined the meeting but the reference is not quoted to me even as a reference in the itineraries. So I want you to quote your comments in the meeting link as a reference and not as a curriculum, where this upload of the curriculum, that is Codeforce Chronicles, and I want to congratulate the subscribers for elucidating the formulated evidence. And I want to quote the reference, that is my health, as a referral to this curriculum. I have cold and the confession which I'm going to make is going to help you to understand that the referrals are easy, but the temperature is hot in places where you're part of. So keep yourself warm and attain the assault, that is the reference which is quoted as a curriculum to you, with the exegesis as a reference to the curriculum and not as a ephemeral in the surreptitiously cascade in the cadence or the reference which is quoted as itineraries to you. When it comes to the curriculum, and you can view the channel which I'm quoting as a podcast to you and not as a reference, and sorry about the whereabouts, that is the new event. Dreamforce was in place because of few referrals which I'm quoting, and today is a day where we have to celebrate, and the name which I will quote in this itinerary will help you, that is the conference, will help you to understand that. And I'm quoting this again: Jennifer, a Salesforce MVP, an influencer who's part of Women in Tech, can help us to understand the verticals. That is, she was part of this curriculum, that is the Africa Ohana, and we quote ourselves as trailblazers. And today I received a tag in my post that my achievements are part of her curriculum as well, and and I want the narrations. I think Andrew wants an answer related to the podcast series, okay, which is quoted as a reference. Now that is related to the same concept or the concept which you want me to answer, so it depends on the vertical. Now when we speak about the references, that is the concept which will be help us to understand the reference. That is, when we speak about our curriculum, the reference should be quoted as the parameter which will help you to understand the parameters which I've quoted in this podcast series related to Salesforce automation, and the curriculum today will support your evidence. Okay, that is related to the recursion and the interview process which will be part of. But when it comes to my curriculum, I am clear that the placement and the curriculum which I'll quote as a itinerary will be quoted as a cascaded statement. For a reason, the reference cannot be considered even after a period of maybe a year or two, because of a reason. I'm not part of the curriculum or the organization which is the Salesforce partnered company, and if you get referred to Salesforce, it is quoted as a noteworthy achievement. Now, when it comes to the aesthetics and the references which we quote as a curriculum. Now, the aesthetics which we want in the reference and the and I can quote this as a paramount in the itineraries, quoting my experience as well. That is, I have about 10.1 years of experience in the domains which I'm quoting as an assistant project manager, tester, developer, and now I've won my achievements by receiving a project which is part of my Salesforce domain, which was into education cloud, and now I'm part of the research theory and the papers which is related to sales service education cloud, and as a paramount I have to be part of the Copado, Velocity and MuleSoft integration projects which are my my curriculum. So the upcoming projects are in place. But when it comes to the referrals, which is quoted again as finance and health cloud, the domains, and I'm part of the velocity integration and chatbot domain. Now, when it comes to this idea which I'm quoting, even through this session, you should understand the verticals. So, when it comes to my experience, I'm a certified Salesforce admin, and I'm preparing for my certifications, which is related to agent force and the certifications as associate and specialist, but the referrals will be quoted to me only after a period of time. So I am working on the domains and I want you to be part of my course and the curriculum. Now, when we speak about today's curriculum, I want you to understand that the verticals that I quote cannot be considered until you open the curriculum, read the curriculum, and then explain your expertise to me. So I want this curriculum and the narrations which I'm quoting to be exempted only if you feel that the vertical which I will speak about is part of your curriculum, and I understand that the audience are getting bored, so let me head towards the session. Now, the curriculum which I'm quoting, which I'll circulate after I receive an update from you that you want to be part of the admin, developer and advanced developer curriculums, and I want your reference to be quoted to me, even as a narrations, as a narrative statement and not the narrations. So when it comes to these two terminologies, we should understand that the vertical is in place, and I want the subscribers who are part of my curriculum and the project which I will enhance in few days, where my the parameters easy, but I have to be part of the sessions. So there's a project and I have to be part of the project, I have to conduct my research, my students are growing, my followers are praising me, it's good. But the feedback which I've received is I'm not able to articulate the technical expertise according to the curriculum, and the objectives which I'll quote today can help me to work on the feedback with the itineraries, that is 1 video and 6 shots every day, so that I receive the feedback as a articulated paramount in the experience. And when it comes to my journey from 2019 till today, I can quote my narration as a positive and noteworthy narrations, but the objectives of my curriculum should be clear. When I speak about a curriculum, it should be quoted even in the medium, the social media platforms. For example, it should be easy and not as a reference. That is, Salesforce is part of the curriculum, but the itinerary should be clear, the propaganda should be clear, and paraphrase, that is the prelude, should be in place with the itineraries. So the objectives for today's session is the narrations that we quote, even the feedback which I read, and I have summarized the feedback, but coming to the narrations and the objectives for today, it is easy, but we have to focus. So we have to internalize the deterministic, and when we speak about deterministic, LWC state, we can paraphrase the itineraries into curriculums which will help you to understand the verticals. Okay. Now, when it comes to the narrations, okay, we have to paraphrase two itineraries, and here we have to place the re-render callback events, and here we have the DOM settings. Okay, DOM settings or the DOM settings, it depends on the curriculum. Again, the vocabulary can differ, but when it comes to the DOM settings, we have to be clear. Now, when it comes to my reference, it is clear that the vertical was quoted to me by a client that have to be part of the curriculum and not the itineraries. Okay, so the reason I was part of this curriculum as a curriculum and not an cascaded reference even as a mentor or coach is I was part of the curriculum, and I received the feedback that I have to work on certain aspects which helped me to grow, but it was beyond my thinking. I had to quote Kupodo and the references which is quoted as the paramount, that is the propaganda between the integrations, that is the REST and the REST APIs with the curriculum. The entire curriculum was easy, but the chatbot integration and the responses was tough to handle. So I had to play a reference, that is the data settings had to be quoted as a management. That means we have to just quote the references and then integrate the two personalities, that is the two-way integration, and then the responses will be captured. Simple, but the testing was beyond the visionary, that is the transcendental impact was between the two itineraries, and then we had to conclude that the client is happy with the curriculum because of the data management between the two itineraries, that is the sales team had to quote the reference as an add-on prodigy in the proficiency, and the portfolio was clear to the client that we cleared the itineraries as a reference, not as a challenge. So it goes to the CEO who helped me to understand the curriculum, and I was part of this organization just to understand the management, that is the LMS settings and the curriculum. So it goes to something where my students are happy. I can understand the nods in the sessions, but I want the reference to be quoted even as a text if you're not able to understand the subsidiary. So now I received the text from Carol, and this is the normative functionality which I'll follow from today. You have to text your references to me, to my WhatsApp integration. That is the reference which is quoted to you by our CEO Arundhati Bhattacharya as well. So the references are in place because of your itinerary and not the propaganda. Understood your declaration. I want to be part of an organization because it is part of your reference. I read your message, Anvita. It's clear? Good. Now, the vertical is the DML statements, which we will quote as a reference, and this is the itinerary. Now, when we speak about the deterministic values, we should understand that the architect who will quote the reference to us is part of this session as well. There are architects who are referring their curriculum to me either through a text or through the references which I am receiving as a feedback, that the architect proficiency which I quoted as a reference was not in place because of the terminologies which I use. That is the compliance issue. They wanted the reference to be quoted with the itineraries and the points. Now, if I quote the compliant apex triggers as the reference, that is the compliant issues or the compliance which will be quoted as the reference. So I'm using 2 or 3 words which will help you to understand that the compliant. So when we speak about this terminology, we have to understand the vertical and not the expertise which we quote as triggers. Now, when we speak about the referrals, which will be quoted to us again, that the itineraries are in place, but the referrals will be quoted to us based on our expertise. Now, the vocabulary which I'm using is in place because of your itineraries, okay? So, the bulk complaint, okay? So when we use the terminologies, we have to understand architect bulk complaint apex triggers can be used as compliant, and the reference can be quoted to us as a compliance issue. Now, when we quote architect bulk compliant, if you are facing any issue, you can quote the references again. I'm quoting this references over a period of time as a reference and not as a compliance issue or the governor limit expertise which will be part of. That is the, and I'm repeating this again, architect bulk compliant can be quoted as a, or the reference can be quoted as a encouraging note, that is cultivate an expertise grade mindset for standard objects. Now when it comes to the referrals, that is the vertical which we will be cultivating even as a reference, we have to cultivate the enterprise and not the referrals. Now, I hope you understood this vertical where we have to add the governor limits and quote the compliance issue as a complementary referral. Okay. So, I was trying to understand your cadre when it comes to the reference which I am quoting. I want you to make a note of the vocabulary which I am using when it comes to the technical expertise. Okay. So, enterprise grade mindset for standard objects. And when we speak about the referrals, now when we speak about the itineraries, that is, it is easy to understand the verticals, but the references should be quoted to us again. On an encouraging note, every experiment today is a deliberate stride towards professional acumen and systematic precision. Now, when it comes to professional acumen and systematic precision, it is clear that the reference is quoted again as a normative functionality. Now, I want you to open your environment configuration, where we have to confirm the developer org access so that we can access the account and contact objects. Open your VS Code, which is part of my itinerary, VS Code reference, and the itineraries as extension or developer console, and then the extension should be in place with the developer console so that we can apply the verticals. Now, when we speak about the baseline or context, ensuring the reproducibility, we can quote the narrations again. So now, again, so the itineraries which are in place is clear with the vertical. Now I'll change the org, where I want to authorize an org which will help me to conduct the vertical, and the name of the project which I will help you to quote as a reference is account status. And now, when it comes to our org, we are clear that the reference can be quoted again as an itinerary and not as a paramount. Now, when we speak about the authentication and the issues that we will face even in future, we should understand that the normative functionalities are in place because of the reference and not the integral part of the curriculum. That is, if you want the narrations to be quoted as an exhibition, in the itineraries we have to place our verticals and not the normative functionalities. When we speak about our narrations, we have to allow the itineraries to be quoted to us rather than quoting the paramount and then the expertise. So I'm receiving a call. So over there are placements in the itineraries where we have to work on certain aspects, and I am quoting the narrations again, that the reactive functionalities are in place with the curriculum. Even a call between a meet is tough to handle. With a curriculum where I see the narrations are positive, all are happy with the context. So we have to create a project, that is account status project. I finished creating the project. Now, then it comes to the code which I'm going to place. Okay. So I'll create the project again. I didn't create the project, I was helping myself to understand the curriculum with the reference which can be quoted as a project where we can help our itineraries, that is account status project. and that and we can refer the curriculum. Okay, so that is the reference which will be quoted to us, and then we have to create projects where we can focus on the parameter, that is SFDX lightning web component. Now if you have any questions, you can ask in between the referral period, that is the rest period to my system, where I'm trying to connect to the org, which will help me to authorize the identities as well. So good. I'm thinking of plan. That is to work on a project. Okay, that will help us to grow. That is part of my first cadre, and then I want the curriculum to be quoted to me, and after that I will post my references to my itineraries, that is my subscribers. This is my plan. But when it comes to the narrations, and I see that there's an update which is not pending. Okay, so now or not found. So authorizer, scratch org. See, when it comes to this deliverable, I have to quote the narrations and not the itineraries where the org is in place, but I have to log into the org again. Now it's a tough call between two orgs where I have to just connect the playground and quote the narrations again, so that the login parameter can be quoted as a itinerary. Now I can authorize the org. Takes time to understand the parameters. I was happy with the itineraries which I had planned today, but today now I'm thinking if I have to plan a session, I have to be prepared with the normative functionalities, that is the org is running, and I have to open the narrations. So see, everything is in place. So there we have to work on the parameters. The project is in place with the itineraries, but I see something which you have to work on, okay, even as a extension in the VS Code, where we have to understand the files which we want to conduct even as a reference. So if I want a new project to be created, okay, let me try to explain this functionality which I'm trying to explain, but now if we want to create a project, okay, now I'll create a project, standard project, same thing, okay, same reference, status project, okay, for example, if I want to create this project in the VS Code, okay, now I have to create another vertical, that is SFDX Lightning Web Component. So this is in place, so you can see the vertical. Now it's easy, okay, to configure the extensions as well. There are placements which should work, okay, even when we are part of projects, where we have to create the Lightning Web component as account status HTML, the reference is HTML extensions project. So SF project, now when I was explaining the verticals, I understood that you're helping yourself to coach the narrations even in your orgs. Now when it comes to the lightning element and the vertical which we want to enhance even as a temporary narration in the context, we have to coach the narratives based on the templates that we use. Now when it comes to the itineraries which I'll quote even as a component, we have to use the lightning input, and the label which we want to quote as a reference should be quoted as a narration in the equanimity, that is the account name as a reference in the itineraries, and the value which we quote is the key referral to the name of the account, that is the account name as a parameter. Now when we quote the parameters account name, we have to understand the vertical, that is the on change event, which will be quoted as a reference if we are able to handle the name change event, that is the on click or the reference which will be placed as a itinerary in the referrals, not the button which we want to place our statements with, and the lightning button should be quoted as a parameter in the itinerary. Okay, that is, after we quote the referrals as a button in the parameter with the lightning handle events, and the lightning button should be in place with the label, that is the label which we will place our references with, the set status events which we will quote as a on click functionality, and the status can change based on the update status paramount, that is the identity which will be quoted as a lightning button at the end. So the reference should be quoted as a paramount in the itinerary. If you have any question, you can frame your narrations to me, and I will respond to your narrations after we quote the curriculum. Okay, I have understood the interpretation which was quoted in between the narrations of mine. So I want the current status narration to be quoted as a reference to you, where we have to quote the status as a parameter in the itinerary. When it comes to paragraph, the itinerary which we can quote is the same reference, that is the end tag, where we have to quote P as a reference. But when we type our narrations, we understood that the template is in place with our normative functionalities. Now when it comes to the JS file which we have to narrate as extends functionality, where we have to use the track decorator. Now when it comes to the lightning element, the track decorator can help us to frame our narrations according to the normative functionalities, and the parameter which we will quote is the export functionality with the normative declarator functionalities, and the @track decorator should place the extensions with account name as a normative functionality with the space as a reference. Now when we speak about the reference which we will place even after a period of maybe 1 or 2 days, even after we speak to the clients, we have to mark our references with the status, that is the reference which we will quote even in future. So now when the narrations are part of the normative functionalities, we have to quote the itineraries based on the events. Okay, so the handle name change event, which will be quoted as a reference to you, and I see that the updates in the Salesforce proficiency is part of our curriculum, where we can quote our paraphrase as the events which we can host, that is the event dot target. And I want you to answer this question: when we quote the target as value and the field name as a referral, then what is the narrations we can quote as update in the update statement? That is the update status, which I will place as a reference even in future. What is the reference which you will quote to the client using this pointer functionality? It's simple. You have to write the narrations based on the parameter, that is the this dot account name. It is this dot account name, which is correct. I know you're trying to answer the narrations, and I see that few participants are not able to understand the curriculum. I want you to rejoin the session. I received an update from a student, I think. And if you're able to understand, you can quote your narrations as a paramount, where I will upload this as a video. Correct. It's a video or narrations. Intricate details to be posted again. Andrew, I know you're trying to understand the curriculum, and I want you to quote your narrations to me through a text or after I complete the statements. I see that the itineraries are in place. Now, if we manipulate nested objects without adhering to the @track or immutable paradigms, the latent consequence could manifest in a production environment. I want this provocative inquiry to be quoted as a questionnaire to you. Now, if we quote this as a paramount, and if you want the narrations to be quoted to you, then you have to understand that the context which we will quote even in future should be quoted as a narration and not as a declarative statement. Okay. Now, when we place our targets, that's the and the narrations to be quoted as a reference, which will help us to conclude that the page reference which we want the itineraries to help us to narrate the consequence, that is the XML files which we want the itineraries to quote, will be in place only if we quote the narrators. Now, we have to place the components based on the parameters which we will quote. Now, here we have to understand that the statement which we produce, that is the target objects, and the references which we quote as narrations, can be quoted again. Now, the lightning app, pages should be quoted as a reference, that is in between the targets. Okay, so once we quote the targets, we have to quote the target object with the lightning app pages as a reference in the target object. So the attribute which we want to place even as a reference in this itinerary should be quoted as a reference. Okay, so when we speak about the narrations, that is the lightning app attribute, I'm quoting this as a reference to the itineraries which will be quoted to us even in future, as a parameter in the expertise which will be quoted to us given as a reference, and as a parameter in the targets, I want the narrations to be quoted to us. Okay, so this is a reference which will help us to conclude that we were interested in the itineraries. Now if we want the target object to be part of the record pages, then we have to add the target implementation with the itinerary, that is the record pages instead of app. Now I'll place my circumference with the login itinerary, and that is the empirical and I can quote the narrations to you even in future based on the circumference. Now after we finish quoting the targets, we have to quote the narrators, that is the configuration, target configuration, where the targets is equal to the lightning record page, should be quoted as the reference. Now after we add the lightning record page, we have to narrate the consequences, that is the object which we will create, or the objects we will create. In between the paraphrases, and the I made it as paraphrases, it is paraphrased, it is sorry, I'm not able to conclude the narration. I read the statement which was quoted to me by participant Deepika. She wants the summarized articulation. So the paraphrased account as an object can be quoted as a narration, even in her vertical, that is Deepika's vertical, it's the same narration. Okay. So we can quote the target configs as a reference and not as a parameter in the itineraries, and complete the narrations. Now we have to conclude the normative functionality, that is the target config functionality, which will be quoted as a reference, as a prior narration to the expertise, which will be part of our narration. This is a summary where the end tag component bundle is not in place with the functionality. Where I see that the component label is not in place with the syntax because of the quoted narrations, where we have to just place a reference, that is the orchestration between the packages. So the narrations should be in place, and I wanted the my Salesforce hubs to understand that the itinerary should be quoted with the reference, that is the first tag and then the second, and then the narration should be quoted to the reference. So now when it comes to the paraphrase, we have to quote the API version as a reference to the vertical. So you have to post the narrations based on the paraphrased itineraries. So I wanted a feedback related to the session where we will conclude the narrations within some time, where I want your feedback to be quoted. Now when it comes to the developer console and the reference, now we have to understand the vertical, that is the API version of the paraphrase where we can narrations even as a vertical. And not as an itinerary, where I see this API version 65, it should be considered as a reference, where we are clear that the API is in place with the versioning formality. And I see that the message which we have received, that is the narrations, that is the E tag reference, it is quoted as a parameter. Now when it comes to the reference, the lightning bundle is not able to paraphrase the response, that is the end tag response, and the server is not responding to this itinerary, which can be quoted as a normative functionality, even as a context in the reference. So if we place our itineraries, that is the end tag reference, in the lightning bundle, where I see that the objects are in place with the narration, so the tags which we have to articulate even as a reference, and we have to focus on the tags which we have quoted even as a HTML paraphrase. Now I see that the input tag is not in place with the narrations. We have to quote the end tag narration here, which will help us to articulate our references to the lightning component. And the event is helping the narrations but not the paraphrase. Now that we are able to understand the syntax error which we are facing, and I see that the reference is quoted to us even as a parameter in the itinerary, we have to understand the vertical and quote the narrations and not the references, where I see that the error can be handled without quoting the syntax as a reference, where we have to handle the normative functionality. Okay. Now I will quote the narrations to you. That is the narrations which will be quoted even as a reference. So after the target is achieved, quoting the event value as a normative functionality, we have to extend the vertical, and if the statement has been terminated with the vertical, then the reference is part of the curriculum. Now we can use the master label as a reference. To the account status, functionality, where we have to perform our narrations based on the label. Master label functionality will help us to close the targets based on the itineraries, and the target with the home page as a reference can be quoted as a normative functionality, where we can tag the home page, that is the home page record, can be closed. Now when I read the narrations, the input label with the account name should be quoted as validated, and the value should be part of the account name as a narration, and the functionality which we are quoting should be removed as a tag, and the handle change should be quoted as a narration. Now the end tag of the lightning input functionality should be quoted after the on change event, that is the input tag reference. I see that the format error is in place with the curriculum. So when we quote the narrations, that is the account name for example, we are clear with the syntax. But when we have to update the status, that is the update status, we have to change the vertical to the normative functionalities, and the narrations should be quoted as a event and not as a functionality. Okay, that is a error. Now we can save the component. Now I see that the events are not in place with the curriculum. That is the account name with the account name as a paramount, and the reference should be quoted with the curriculum. Now when we put the curriculum, it should be part of the narrations. Now I have to focus on the parameters that is quoted to us. the targets which we quote as narrative, but the references are not in place with the itineraries. So I want a confirmation if the narrations which I've quoted is correct even with the itineraries, then we can quote the narrations as a reference in the itineraries, where we had to place our statements with the elements in the lightning record page. So it is clear that it is a syntax error which is part of this curriculum, but okay, so now I understood the vertical which is quoted to me as a reference to this context. We have to work on a parameter now. Okay, so we have to work on a parameter now. Okay, so we have to, and I'm quoting this as a reference to you. Even when we quote the narrations, we should be clear with our vertical, and I was waiting for your response. Now when it comes to the narrations which is quoted to us, that is the that is the HTML file where we can quote the account's name with the value as a reference, and the on change event can be taken into consideration. But when we update the status with the lightning button, we can quotes the narrations as a statement. Okay. In the lightning component parameter, where we have to close the lightning button after we update the status. The vertical where we have to use the class equal to and SLDS medium top underscore medium that is the reference where we can quote the vertical, that is the status as strong and quotes the where inside the lightning button we shouldn't paraphrase this context. We have to quote it after the reference is quoted to us, even as a referral in the mechanism. I'm quoting all the references to you as a paramount where we have to quote the variant. Variant equal to the brand and the class equal to small and the on click update status should be quoted as a reference in the lightning button and we can remove the current status reference as a paramount in the itinerary. We have to close the tags, that is the division tag, which will be quoted as a class, which is equal to the SLDS round, and we can quote the reference. Now based on the page and the reference, I feel that the narrations can be quoted around the medium, that is the paragraph and the medium. Conference, and the lightning input table should be quoted as a value, and the on change event should help you to close the vertical. And at the end, you have to close the paraphrase with the tags, that is the division tag as well, and the reference should be quoted with the tags that we use, that is the lightning, car, the title as account status, and the end tag should be quoted as a reference. Now we can understand this logic, okay, by quoting the reference as a narration, and I want the reference to be quoted even as an itinerary. Now when we fix the bundle, we understand that the statements are not in place with the itineraries. Even as a reference to this context, there is a mismatch in the bundles. So we can help ourselves by using the narrations, okay, as a context where we can use the tool Gemini as a reference in the context. So I want to close the session by quoting the narrations as a paramount in the itineraries, which will be quoted as a normative functionality, and I see that the narrations can be quoted again even as a normative functionality. Now, when we quote our references even as a paramount in the reference, we can quote the itineraries as a reference to the context. I want the narrations to be quoted to me as a normative functionality and not as a normative declaration. And I want my references to be quoted as a prompt where you can add the trigger implementation, and I want you to quote the narrations to me. I know the answer of this question, and I'll guide the error which is quoted in this itinerary, where you have to use a normative functionality in this itinerary which will quote the syntax as a reference, and the event can be hosted as a normative declarative functionality. Now, I have a question. How is the refactor, that is the high volume insertions without breaching governor threshold, quoted as an inconsistency in the paramount? Now, we can use the best practices and handle this recursive factor by quoting the deterministic LWC ensures predictable state and UI consistency as a first best practice. Immutable references safeguard against asynchronous collisions as second best practice. Bulk safe apex triggers prevent governor limit transgressions as a third best practice. Lifecycle hooks and conditional reactivity foster system resilience as a final call to this narration. Now, when we speak about the courses, admin developer, advanced developer courses, which is curated for rupees 4,500 as a normative functionality within 15th of January, where the self-paced course, which is rupees 2,500, which is a curated curriculum with 1 year guided support, no placement guarantee as a curriculum. The live demo sessions which I'm conducting is between 3 to 4 p.m. IST every day, and you can contact me at 80500330007. Follow my narrations on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. Sustained participation in these empirical exercises is the scaffolding upon which enterprise grade proficiency is built. Much like elite athletes in tennis, where precision, anticipation, and relentless discipline triumph over improvisation, Salesforce architects excel through deterministic, deliberate, and feedback oriented engineering. Thank you. Have a great day.